Well, today is Monday, May the 19th, and we're sitting in Temple, Israel with Lester Abeloff, who is a long time member and a generous benefactor to Temple Israel. Lester, if you would please tell us, how did your parents come to Stroudsburg?
Well, my father came from Russia in 1914, and he settled down up on the Canadian border around Lake Champlain. And he came down, all the way down like a peddler, yeah. And he ended up in Kingston, New York, where he met my mother and got married, and they kept going down until they come to Stroudsburg, and he settled in Stroudsburg and went into the used furniture and used car business back where, over there where Rudy's Bar and Grill, that's the old Abeloff building over there on Washington Street.
Tell us your parents' name, because most people wouldn't know them.
Well, my mother died in 1940. She died as a young woman of lung cancer. She never smoked a cigarette in her life. My father, Nathan Abeloff, died in 1959 at the age of 85.
What was your mother's name?
My mother's name was Pearl Ruth. She was a natalman before she got married. Pearl Ruth was her name.
But your father married for a second time, I think, didn't he?
No. Oh no. I'm talking about my mother. See, then my mother died in 1940. Then of course my father got married. I don't remember the exact year after that. And of course they lived up on 180 Grand Street. And after he got married the second time, we all got out of the house. And as I recall, before the war, 1941, I enlisted in the Air Force with a BS in education, and like $500 a year, and I became a navigator and flew 56 raids over. Yeah.
What kind of planes did you fly in?
We flew the old B-17s. They were a good airplane. They had the 4-engine. They come in on one. They could fly on one engine.
Very sturdy aircraft. Yeah. Were you born in Stroudsburg?
I was born in Stroudsburg in December 5th, 1917. I don't know if it's true or not, but my mother told me that I was the first Jew born in Stroudsburg. I don't know if that's true.
Well, that's an honor. Yeah. What was I going to say? When did you become part of Temple Israel?
Well, when my father and mother, of course, my father was still active in the temple, and I don't remember when I joined the temple as a member. It had to be after like 1946 or 47, because I lived over across in East Stroudsburg, across from the Elks Club. I lived in Washington Street.
I'm looking at the temple history, and there are a number of people who founded the temple in 1919, but your father's name is not among them. Did he join later on, or was he not here?
Well,
Yom Kippur evening 1919 is when they had the first minyan here. Was he here then?
Where'd they have the minyan at?
At Mr. Nadelman's home.
Yeah, well, that was my mother's brother.
Oh, you knew him then?
Oh, Louis Nadelman. He died when I was just a young kid. But I remember having a Hebrew school over in our house on South Cortlandt Street, because I remember Ida Chiat and Rose Chiat there in Steinberg now. They were attended the Hebrew school with us, and I can remember like it was yesterday sitting there alongside those girls.
So Ida Chiat, that's Art Jolly's mother.
That's Art Jolly's mother, exactly.
And they did have girls in the Hebrew school.
Yes, those girls, Rose and Ida both attended the Hebrew school.
Well, that's something we didn't hear about.
Yeah, and Myron Ehrlich and Murray and my older brother Maynard. And at that time, we used to meet in our house there on South Cortlandt Street.
So you have two brothers, two siblings. Maynard has passed away. He was the older one.
Yes, and Murray's my younger one.
Murray is younger. And do you remember service? I mean, let me go back to the Hebrew school. There were two girls you said in there, and
there were two girls I remember, and I remember Myron Ehrlich. He lived here. He left Stroudsburg, and Murray and Maynard, and I can't remember offhand any of the rest of them, but there were others.
But you had a bar mitzvah. The boys had bar mitzvahs.
Oh yeah.
Did the girls have bat mitzvahs?
Not at that time, I don't think. No.
So they just went to Hebrew school.
They went to Hebrew school. Where Mr. Chai wanted his daughters to be learning in Hebrew, and incidentally, before there was a rabbi. My father brought a rabbi in from New York and paid for that rabbi 2 days a week to teach his children.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Do you know his name by any chance? Remember his name? That's a long time.
It was a long time ago. The Rabbi Mischel he moved here, and he lived in a house that the temple owned, alongside of the temple over in East Stroudsburg, when we had the old
Brown
temple.
Street.
Yeah, he was a wonderful rabbi.
What was his name?
Mishler.
Mishler.
Rabbi Mishler.
Mishler.
Yeah, he had 2 sons. I remember.
Do you know about what time, what years that might have been?
I really can't tell you, Arthur.
Okay, so you went to Hebrew school here. Do you know you did have a bar mitzvah here, obviously?
My brother was bar mitzvah, and when my brother was bar mitzvah, I read the Torah for him.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I read the Torah, and I was bar mitzvah. And incidentally, my mother was very religious. I laid tefillin until I was about 18 years old.
Is that right?
Yeah, and after that, I didn't know what bacon was until I went in the service. In 1941, I never heard of bacon.
It's incredible. Were your parents, both parents, religious people?
Well, my mother was very religious, and my grandmother lived with us at that time, and she was, of course, very religious.
And what was her name?
Well, her name was Nadelman, Mrs. Nadelman,
So that's your mother's mother?
That's my mother's mother, and I remember we used to play the Russian game like 21, what is it, Zeks and Zeksik, they call it, 66. We used to play that every day.
When did you start to learn Hebrew? Did you write there?
I started learning Hebrew at a very young age. I'd say no more than 6 or 7.
And in the Hebrew school, or did your parents teach you at home first?
No. The rabbi brought us from New York and taught in our house.
So your father brought him here 2 days a week?
2 days a week, and paid for that rabbi. Now my father wasn't very wealthy at that time, but he thought it was important for his children to have a Hebrew education. Because he had 3 sons, you know.
Did they all learn Hebrew very well?
Well, we all learned Hebrew.
I know Murray doesn't have much Sitzfleisch, you know.
No, Murray doesn't.
Okay. Now tell us about your bar mitzvah, if you can, please.
Well, they were in the old temple, and they were beautiful. And incidentally, our principal, we learned for it, and we did a good job of it. When I watch some of the kids today, of course, we did the Hebrew much better than the kids do today. But I have to tell you something. I used to be in the old temple before we built this new temple.
Excuse me, you're talking about the temple on Brown Street.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I can tell you that if you wanted an aliyah, they used to sell everything. You never got anything for nothing. And you had to pay to lift the Torahs up and put them away, and you had to pay for them. And I'll never forget that Cy Katz and Eddie Katz's father, David Katz, wanted me to say a makar one year, and there was somebody else that wanted to say it, and he bid that thing up like $60 or $70, which is a fortune at that time to have somebody else say the makar. But I was good at it at that time when I was a young kid.
Well, that's terrific.
Yeah.
So you read the Torah and you read the Maftir for your bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
And was it Rabbi Mishner, you said, who trained you for that?
For my bar mitzvah, I think it was Rabbi Mishel.
Mishel.
And they lived in the house that the temple owned next to the temple on Brown Street.
Were there a lot of people at your bar mitzvah?
Well, there weren't that many. There were quite a few people there, so I can't tell you how many. Oh, I can remember. Yes, I'm trying to think of my son's bar mitzvah was there too in the old temple.
Did you have a big party?
Yeah.
And where was that held?
They had it downstairs in the old temple that you went down, and they had a kitchen there, and we used to they had bar mitzvah parties and gatherings there, social gatherings.
So you say that the temple was really the focal point for the social life of Jews in Stroudsburg?
I would say so. Yes.
What are some of the things that they did there in a social way?
Well, they used to have of course, there were men's meetings, and then there were sisterhood meetings there, and they had to conduct whatever business there was. And I can remember, well, for years and years, Ted Getz, who was one of the first presidents of the temple, attending one of the meetings. I was just a young kid at that time. And my brother Maynard, he was a member of the temple before I was. Of course, he was older.
Yes. What's the difference in age between you and me?
Maynard was only a year older than me.
Just a year.
But at that time, that was a lot.
But he wasn't born in Stroudsburg.
No,
you were the first one to be born.
I was born in Stroudsburg. Born on North 5th Street, and incidentally, I'll tell you a strange story. My mother told me that the day I was born, there was a duplex. There was a couple upstairs. There was a boy born up there the same day that I was. So when I was in the automobile business, I was filling out an application for a man that bought a car. And I said, his name was Farry, Jim Farry. what's your birthday? He said, December 5th, 1917. I said, oh, so you're the guy that was born upstairs.
That's funny. In the same house. Isn't that
Yeah, now his grandson, his grandson did some work for me around the house. His grandson is very much alive.
Tell us more about the temple social activities. And did you have a minion every day,
No,
for example?
no, they didn't have minions in those days. They had only when there was a Kaddish and somebody get on the drive-by or somebody get on the phone like you do here. And
So it was still the same way that we do it today?
Try to get a minion together, and if you were called, you had to go. Everybody went. There's no
And
way.
who led the service?
Well, you know, it was a couple of people that were very good at davening. Was Bill Brown's father, Herman Brown.
Herman Brown.
He could sing along with the rabbi. He was terrific.
Yeah.
He sat in the middle. We sat on the left side, the Abeloffs in the front. Everybody had their rows that they sat in. My father would always sit by the window, like in the third row, and we'd have two of us, and one of us was sitting, and two of his children in front of him. And on the middle field was always Herman Brown and his family.
Were the women sitting with the men?
Oh yeah.
Oh, they did?
Oh yeah, women sat with the men.
So you always considered yourself, Temple Israel was a conservative
Yes,
temple from
yeah,
the
it was
beginning, so it was understood that way.
Yeah, yes it was.
Do you think that, or how would you think that the temple, being a member of the temple, affected your life?
Well, listen, I'll tell you, when we were kids, East Stroudsburg and Stroudsburg was a very anti-Semitic community. Terrible. Yeah, we used to be scared to go to school in the morning. We used to I'll never forget, there was weeks we'd get beat up by these old guys, get beat up. And one guy, there was a guy, Lester Strauss, I'll never forget, he says, you get all the Jewish boys together, I'll fight all of you at one time up by the Catholic Church. He fought all of us at one time.
Did you beat them up?
So let me tell you, so there was my brother, and there was about Herman Ransky. Nobody showed up but me. And I tell you, I almost killed him, put him in a hospital.
Really?
I took his head and I pounded on the summit so bad that I was sorry after it happened. And years later, he come and bought a car from me, and he always meant to, he says, I'm sorry that ever happened.
They change over the years.
Yeah.
So you found that anti-Semitism in school as well as in the town.
It was terrible anti-Semitism. You couldn't join the Elks Club. You couldn't join a country club. You couldn't join anything of any. I always wanted to get into Masonic Lodge. Impossible. So when I was in the service out in Sioux City, Iowa, I joined the Masonic, became a 32nd degree Mason out there.
Did this anti-Semitism reflect itself on the temple? In other words, were there any incidents with the temple during that time that you can remember?
There might have been, but I can't recall. I'll tell you, there were no Jewish teachers. There was only one. As a matter of fact, there was anti-Catholic at that time too. Mr. Blewett was a Catholic. They lived alongside of us on Grant Street, and he was the first. He was an arts teacher over in Stroudsburg High School. And after that, we never had a Jewish teacher. But later on, there were some Catholics and Jewish teachers after I got out of there. I think Lenny Eisman was a teacher, as I recall. I don't remember after. It was much after I got out of school.
Was that male teacher you just mentioned a member of the temple?
No, he was not. He was a Catholic.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
He was a Catholic.
Oh, in other words, that was the only non-Protestant.
That's right. They were also anti-Catholic. They always believed that the Pope would come over to the United States and someday rule America. That was what the Catholics used to do. Non-Catholics believed.
It was a tough time.
Yeah.
See, we spoke about minions. The services for high holidays. Did you import a rabbi or a cantor for that?
Oh, yeah. We had to import a cantor, and our own, whoever the rabbi was, he handled the rabbi services, but they always imported a cantor for over the high holidays. And as I recall, the going price at that time was like $3,000. I don't know what they paid today.
Well, that's what we were paying out the last couple of years.
Yeah, $3,000 a rabbi come. And
that's a lot of money in the we're talking 1920s and 1930s.
Well, not 1920s. I was born in 17. I'm talking between the 40s and 50s and the 60s.
When did you come back from the service?
I come back from the service in 1940, November of 45, and my father bought an old house on Washington Street. It was sold. It was 150 years old. As a matter of fact, in the kitchen was one of those big holes where you drink the water up with a pail.
Oh, God.
And
from
my father spent, I can't tell you, we spent a fortune on an old house. We paid $3,000. I think we spent about $25,000 or $30,000, and he plastered the walls. And it was beautiful. And we made an apartment upstairs where Henry and Rose Reeder lived, and they had their son Alan, which was friendly with our son Daniel, and we had a nice arrangement between the two families, the Reeders. And of course, then we moved out to Glenbrook, and later Henry Reeder, they'd moved out too from Washington Street.
Can you think of any, funny incidents that occurred during the time? Anything that any remarkable characters you can remember among the congregants?
Well, I remember Dr. Newman. He was a what do they call an eyeglass guy. He was a
optometrist.
Yes, he had his own. He was much older than my father. He was one of the oldest members, and I think he was a past president too, Dr. Newman.
His name was Joseph Newman, N-E-U-M-A-N, I think, and he pronounced it Newman.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was Newman or Neumann.
Newman.
Newman.
Yeah, he was one of the old timers here. And I remember when we were kids and they were building a temple, and the temple had a concrete stairway to go up to the temple, and then there was a downstairs to go into the basement part of it. And we used to jump off and see how high we could go off those steps before you break your leg. And all the boys were up there jumping off the steps. I remember that. We used to do that all the time.
Do you remember the construction of the temple on Brown Street?
The actual building of it?
Yeah.
I don't really. No. I don't remember. I can't even tell you what year that was built, but I do remember we had a lot of tough times with the mortgage. The old Monroe County National Bank always threatened us with we were so behind in the interest payments, and eventually we had some kind of a fundraiser where we paid off the mortgage.
Now that was part of this thing. I asked you the question. I don't think we really got an answer from it. How do you think being a member of Temple Israel affected your life? I don't think we really discussed that.
Well, let me say something. We never denied that we were Jews in the community, no matter how hard we got beat up. We could say we weren't, but no, we had to admit to it. And being a Jew, you just didn't partake in most of these. It was tough. You couldn't get in a Rotary Club. The one club that took in Jews was the Lions Club, and I remember I was a past president of the Lions Club, and I think Cy Katz was too, as I recall. That was the only club that even not the Rotary, what's the other?
The Elks, Rotary, Kiwanis.
The Kiwanis was the other one. But as we grew older and the years went by, you got into the Elks Club, you got into all those. They didn't take us. You never could play golf at Glenbrook. As a matter of fact,
didn't Myron tell you to buy the place?
Well, we bought. Jess Haynes was a Ford dealer, and I was a Pontiac dealer at that time. And we got together. We bought half the club. We owned half the club at that time.
So you kept the Gentiles out?
Well, then the Jews were all invited to come. We appreciated their membership.
Did you ever hold any specific office, like a president or anything in the temple?
No, I never held a high office.
But you've been
I tell you, I was very active in the building of the new temple.
Tell us about that, please.
Well, that was an interesting thing, because first it was a big project. We had to go out and look for land, and I think Cy and I we went. Cy Katz. We knew the Kramer family real well, and they were a very charitable family. And they sold us all this land up here for, I forget, I think it was like $10,000, which was worth, even in those days, 30 or 40,000. But they wanted to see a synagogue up here, and we bought this from the Kramers.
So we're talking about the Wallace Avenue.
The Wallace Avenue Temple, and we had to buy. Then we had to engage fundraisers out of Philadelphia to raise the money, and I think we tried to raise. I can't tell you. I think it was like $250,000. We tried to raise to build the temple and pay for the land, and we had a fundraiser we had to pay for, and then we hired an architect. That just so happened that I had an architect building my home at that time in 1959 from Allentown. So we got the same architect, John Michael from Allentown, to design this temple.
Did anybody any of the members have any input as to how the building should look or how they wanted to construct it?
We used to meet. I tell you, we used to meet 3 nights a week to build the temple. We had all kinds of committees. I mean, Dave Birnbaum did this. Sam Manat did that. We had everybody was. Cy Katz was the president at that time, and we had meetings all the time. And we told people what we thought they had to give, and if we thought a man ought to give $1,000 or $1,500, and if he offered $300, we told him we wouldn't take him as a member, and we threatened them until they would come up, because we couldn't build a temple unless everybody participated in to a fair amount.
So it was difficult to get people to give money?
Well, a lot of people, the Abeloff family, a lot of families were very, very good. I don't remember if Bob Rosen was, I don't think Herb Rosen was here that time. No, I don't think Herb was here. But we had the Birnbaums. Jackie Birnbaum's always been very good. And Sam Newman's been excellent over the years. Very very lean and very
generous man. Well, you've been very generous too, and I don't know whether you want to put this in the tape or not. But
well,
people know about you, and I think that's very important.
When I could afford it, then I always said I'd like to leave the synagogue. I gave a talk one time when they honored me up in Scranton. I'd like to leave the synagogue $1 million so we could hire a good rabbi. And after that, 2 or 3 rabbis in Scranton come up and said, we're looking for a job. So it's still my intention to try to leave $1 million if I can. On my stocks went down so far, but it's coming back. So
good.
Maybe it'll be a reality.
Good for you. So you didn't hold any specific office like an officer, a president, or whatever, but you were a benefactor in many respects. Yeah, you participated in the building of the new building.
Mackie Cohn was a president. When he went out, he begged me to take the presidency.
Excuse me, Mackie Cohn was a lawyer, a local lawyer.
A local lawyer, and he was very active in the synagogue, and he had a lot to do with the good things that we did in the temple. And he pleaded with me that he wanted me to be the next president. I was his right-hand man when he was president. And I just couldn't do it. I had too many problems at home, and I just couldn't take it on. So I never did do anything. I was never vice president, secretary, nothing.
But you were a businessman and living in Stroudsburg.
I was a business.
But you always participated in the temple in terms of his needs as much as you could.
I could. I was a good member. And as a matter of fact, years ago when the interest rates were high, like 12 or 15%, we used to sell a lifetime membership for $10,000 because the interest was more than what we were paying. So I was the first one to become a lifetime member for $10,000.
Oh.
And I can't remember who there was. 4 or 5 of us.
They're out on the. Yeah, I know.
4 or 5. I forget who they were.
Charlie Kahn, I know, was a life member. Herb Rosen's a life member. Yeah. Edith Jacobson's a life member.
Is she?
Yes. There are some names there on the board. I don't recall all of them.